Hi, welcome to the GL transaction video, and this is Saurabh. In this video, we are going to do the first transaction of the general ledger module, which is the creation of a JV or a journal voucher. Right now, the first thing or the first prerequisite to ensure that a JV may be created in the GL module is to ensure that we open the general ledger period. Now, if you remember in the previous classes, we had created two responsibility. One responsibility was the end user responsibility, which we can currently see on the application General Ledger EU. EU stands for end user, and this responsibility was linked to our ledger Vision Web Tutorial Corporation. On similar lines, we had created one more responsibility for the setup user, which was called General Ledger Setup User or SU Vision Web Tutorial Corporation. Now, if I switch the responsibility, I will be able to see that setup user responsibility. Okay. Now, I had also enabled a security setting in the system administrator module, which ensured that the setup related activities could be done only by the setup user. Okay. Now, the activity which I am planning to do now, which is to open up the general ledger period, pertains to a setup related activity. So in order to do that, I must navigate to the super user responsibility. So let me navigate to General Ledger SU Vision Web Tutorial Corporation, and then let me open up the GL period here. So I'll find the GL period using Control L. So this is open and close period, and if you want to see the detailed navigation for it, it is setup, financials, or rather we do not need to go to setup financials, we need to go to setup and open close. Okay, so let me open close this video. So in this form we can see that we first need to query the particular ledger for which we intend to open the period, open or close the period. So in our case, the name of the ledger is Vision Web Tutor Ledger, and we can either see the periods with all the status, or we can filter periods of a particular status, right? So in this case, let me see the status of all the periods. So I'll say find. So we can see that if there is no period in the concerned calendar which is still open, then when we click on the find button, the system will ask us to open up the first period. Okay, so if you remember, the period which we had created in the previous class was only for the financial year 2014-15, and the first period was January 2014, which was mapped as January 14-14. Okay, this first period we had specified in the ledger option, so that is why when we try to open up the GL period, we need to first open up the first period which we had specified in the GL ledger creation options. So since we had specified January 14-14, the same option is being shown to us here. So we'll say open. So system is giving us a prompt. The reason the system is giving us a prompt is this decision to open up the first period January 14-14 is irreversible. So I must be very sure that this is the first period which I intend to open up in my ledger. So I'll say yes. So as soon as I say yes, system will launch a concurrent request to open up the GL period, and it will also return the ID of that request. So let me just go and monitor the status of that request. So let me change the number of days to view as 1 so that the results are returned quickly. So this period, once this request is completed, open period, the GL period will open up. So this request is in a standby mode. Let me just see the status of the manager, why it is in a standby mode. Standard manager, this request is still running. Now it is in pending normal status. So we can see that the open period request has completed successfully and normally, and as soon as the open period request is completed, system launches one more request, to calculate the GL related balances for the new period, because if at all in the trial balance we have got some balance sheet related accounts, or in fact within the same year, even within the same year, if we have got some P&L related account, then the closing balance of 1 month should flow as the opening balance of the next month. So this request is going to ensure that balances get flown from 1 month to the other. So we can see that both the requests have completed normally. Let me check the output of this open period. So there is no output, and if I try to check the log, then I'll see the message that this request was successful. Now what I'm going to do is I will go back to the open close period form, and then let me try to open close any of the period again. So I'll select the ledger and the status as any, and then I'll say fine. So I can see that once the first period has been opened up, then the find button will return some query. So we can see that the first status is open, which is the status of the first period, and we can also see one thing, that the status of the next period after Jan Feb 14-14 has become future entry. Okay, now if you remember, when we had created the ledger, in the ledger there was one option to specify the number of future periods. So over there we had entered an option of 1, which stands for 1 period. So that is why 1 period subsequent to the first period which is currently opened, or actually the last period which is currently open, which is January 14-14 in this case, will be treated as a future period. Okay, so the future period can be used to enter any sort of future dated transaction, right? So now suppose after Jan we want to open up the next period also, which is let us open up the period till April 2014. So to open up the next period, which is Feb, I'll click this open period option. Then I need to select the target period which I intend to open. So this will be Feb 14-14, and I'll say open. So I'll say yes in this decision box, and then again the request will get launched. And then if I want to open up the next period as well, then I'll go to the same open period option. I'll say March, and I'll say open, and then let me go to the SRS window and monitor the status of the 2 requests which has been launched by the system to open the period. So we can see that this time around 2 instances of open period is getting launched. So let me just refresh the status of the SRS form. One very important thing to notice in this SRS form is when we click on the refresh data, only the screen is getting refreshed. Nothing is happening to the request which has been launched by the system. Okay, so if at all there is any request which takes a lot of time because it's a very complicated request, then don't think that if we click the refresh data, it speeds up the processing of that request. The only thing which happens if we press the refresh data is that the screen will get refreshed. Okay, so we can see that now the request has completed, and we are waiting for the open period balance request to get finished. Let me refresh. The balance calculation for Feb has happened successfully. Now the calculation for March is going on, and now let me go back to the open close period option and click on find. So now we can see that Jan, Feb and March are open, and the first adjustment period, adjustment Q1 14 has become a period with a status of future entry. So now let me go back to the open period option. And one more thing which I can notice now in the open period option is the periods which are already open do not appear here. Only the period which has never been opened or the periods which have a status of future entry will appear in the open period LOV. So what I'm going to do is I want to open the first adjustment period. So I'll say open, and then I'll go back to this option and I will open up the April period also. So April period is going to be the last period which I'm going to open up. I'll say open and I'll say yes in the decision box, and then let me go to view request. Let me select the number of days as 1 and then find, and then let me wait for these two requests to get finished. So it seems the adjustment period has been opened, and now the system is trying to open up the April period. So let me refresh the data. So the periods of April has also been opened. Now the open period balance request is running. So let us wait for that request to get finished. So once the period gets opened up, we will go to the JV form, the general voucher form, and we will create the JV. So now let us see the status again. So now we can see that the periods have been opened up from January till April, and the period of May is in future entry status. So with this we have finished the first prerequisite of the creation of a general voucher, which is to open up the GL period in the concerned ledger. Now we will go to the general voucher form and we will create general voucher. Thank you.